We are back at Seward Park for the second Seward 530 race of the year. As you can see, the weather was amazing, and so we had a huge field of riders. I think we probably had like 45 riders start the 530 if I had to guess, and then the 6 p.m. race was even bigger, as it often is. But the main thing to note this week, aside from the weather being spectacularly nice for this early in the season, is that we are going clockwise. So the other direction around the loop, I would say the ordinary for Seward Park is to go counterclockwise. I used to think that it was supposed to be like every other week. I kind of don't know how the organizers decide when they're going to go clockwise, but at least a couple times a season they usually go in this direction instead of counterclockwise. And personally, I like this direction a lot less. The hill seems a lot harder, but that being said, the finish line, as you'll see at the end of this lap, is sort of right at the top of the uphill, so there's not that sort of false flat section into the sprint finish after the climb. But the reason I dislike it the most, aside from the hill feeling a little harder, is that the descent just feels a tiny bit sketchier. There's a turn right at the bottom of the descent where there's a sewer grate that the organizers always give us a warning about, because it could really mess you up if your line went through that and you got a wheel hooked in it. And then also just people seem less confident going this way for some reason. You'll actually see there's a crash, I think in the next lap or two here. But I have a bunch of teammates out here. In front of us, we've got teammate Brett with the white helmet, who's attacking on the front right now. He had told us that his plan was just to send flyers, send attacks the whole race, and try and tire out the field, which I was super down for. And then we've got Jason here in the orange helmet right in front of me, and then Mark in the blue helmet on the sort of front left of the screen right now. And then I think, we also had Bailey, who is also in a white helmet, who is somewhere behind us, who is super strong. He was out here last week, but last week was his first time racing Seward, and he was just kind of getting used to the course. This year he said, hey, I want to go for at least one of the preems. I want to try to get a result, and we were stoked about that. Mark was also feeling really good. He's super, super fit right now, and he's a smaller guy, so this direction actually suits him quite a bit better, because he can get some really good watts per kilo on the hill, but that false flat to the finish that I was talking about doesn't really suit him. Here's the crash. Yeah, those guys just went too wide. I talked with that dude who actually crashed after the race. He was okay, and his bike was okay. Seems like he had at least good luck to crash into the grass there, and then that other rider didn't really crash at all. He just rolled up into the grass. So super glad that wasn't, sketchier than it could have been, that there weren't other crashes, at least that I saw in this race. But seeing that on lap 2 did kind of freak me out a little bit, and now I'm thinking, okay, I'm really, even more so than usual at Seward, going to try to make sure that I'm in the top, 5 wheels or something going down that hill, because I want to just be able to take the line I want. I don't mind if a little gap opens up and I have to close it down, I feel strong enough to do that. I just really don't want to get in a crash going 35 miles an hour like I did last year. So you'll actually see I'm not doing a ton of power up the hill. I'm just sort of sitting in the pack. But coming out of the corner here, I will do a little spike in power just to make sure that I'm up at the front. Not like pushing myself super hard, but just making sure that I'm in a position I want to be here. And one thing that was interesting, we just saw this going up the hill, and you'll see it again throughout the race, was going up the hill. Obviously, the right side is ideally where you'd like to be, because it's a much shorter line, right? The hill curves to the right, and so you're just biking less distance. But the left side of the road was really, really the open side of the road, basically every lap up the hill. I think kind of what happened was the people who were near the front of the race ended up wanting to sandbag the hill a little bit and just take it pretty easy, and so they were sort of just blocking up the right side of the road, not intentionally blocking it or anything, but just as a natural side effect of how they were riding, and they ended up just totally closing off that side of the road. So the left side was where to be if you wanted to open up, and you can see right there the sewer grate was in view. It actually, the pavement around it dips down towards the grate much more than you can see in this video. You definitely want to avoid that. The ideal line wouldn't be necessarily right there anyway, but it definitely would make you crash. So sitting here on Jason's wheel, just super comfortable. My plan for this race is, I want to win the series. I want to win races. I would love to win preems, but it's not necessarily my number one priority, especially with so many strong teammates out here who want to, get results themselves. They have said in varying levels that they're willing to ride for me, which is awesome. And I, definitely don't want to be going for every single thing and making them do 100% of the work for me. So my plan is basically to sit in and just suck wheels all day, not really go for preems. We talked about Bailey and Mark going for preem number 1 and preem number 2 respectively. And I'm just going to sit in. Well, right now Mark's going off the front, and I'm just going to ease off, do basically no power here just to stay near the front and see if they'll let a little gap open up. Because, like I said, Brett and Mark had talked about sort of wanting to do some attacks. Solo attacks aren't always successful at Seward. As a matter of fact, they're almost never successful. But I wanted to just tire the field out, make some other guys chase a little bit. So some other riders to mention in this race, these two guys right here, this rider in this sort of green-blue jersey and the rider in the brown jersey, are both really good wheels. They both were pretty strong riders who were, I noticed as the race went on, pretty confident like bike handlers and descenders. And like I said, here, especially on the hill, I just really don't want to be behind someone who's not a confident bike handler or descender, because it can get really sketchy really fast. And they're also bigger dudes, so they're both pretty tall, and they were able to give a really, really, really good draft when you were able to be behind one of them. So those are two guys that I sort of had my eye on right at the beginning of the race. I talked with the dude in brown after the race, and I have totally forgotten his name. I'm so sorry. But he is new to bike racing, it sounds like, or new to road racing or crit racing at the very least. And he's super strong. He said he raced cyclocross, and this is his sort of first season trying out road racing. So he's obviously got really good legs, really confident bike handler, like I said, and so he will definitely do well. There's also my buddy Nigel off to the right there in the organic Gnar Harvest, that sweet like purple and yellow jersey. Nigel has gotten really strong this year, man. He had a really good result at the Gravel Gran Fondo Efrata, I want to say, or one of the gravel events that just happened recently. And yeah, he's definitely got a good motor on him this year. So he's someone to look out for. And we're going to the first preem lap. I kind of like that Mark is off the front, but also we had talked about specifically Bailey going for the first preem and Mark going for the second preem. And so, we'll sort of see how this goes. I remember looking back over my shoulder right around here and thinking, oh, Bailey's kind of a ways back in the group. But we'll see what happens. I think there's also actually a guy off the front. Yeah, that rider up there up the road is part of our race, is not a lapped rider, and I think had just happened to attack at the base of the hill. Maybe he, predicted the preem coming correctly. But so I'm not super stressed out about this. I wasn't planning to go for the preem. I thought about, should I do a turn on the front and try to pull this guy back in for Mark? But Mark also hadn't planned to go for this preem specifically, so I kind of wasn't sure what to do here aside from just obviously maintain my own position, hold my lines and chill where I want to be. But Mark is doing some pulling here. I mean, these guys are not riding. And suddenly Bailey just comes over with speed. I'm going to 100% give this wheel to Bailey. I mean, I was just closing it down slowly. Like I said, I'm not super concerned about these little gaps. I maybe should have been a little more, careful about these littler gaps that were opening up, but I felt like I could close them down no problem. But suddenly this dude is getting dragged back, and Bailey just hammers it up the hill. This rider in blue is the one who's off the front. And I was talking to Bailey after the race. This rider here I think is either lapped or was part of a different race that we just passed right there. But we were talking to Bailey after the race. He did not need to go as hard as he did. I'm kind of surprised that really no one seemed to try to follow him seriously for that preem. I think this rider in blue maybe hadn't seen Bailey go off the front. I was kind of wondering about that. But just there, I yelled at Bailey to keep pushing because I realized, I'm like, oh shit, you have like a 4 or 5 second gap here, man. Like, I don't know if he heard me there or what. But I was like, this is kind of a free, well, not free, he did a big ass effort up that hill, but, a relatively easy gap because everyone else has also just powered up the hill. So he could have kept going. I think he doesn't, though. I think he got the preem. He got it with relative ease. I mean, not to discount, he did a huge effort there, but seemed like really no one else tried to chase him down, tried to give it a real meaningful attempt to stop him from getting the preem. So super happy with that. Bailey's second crit race ever, second Seward ever. He's out here nabbing up the preems, just no problem, making it look easy. And now we're into like the sort of weird middle section of the race where it's like, okay, another preem's gonna come up in a couple laps. There's not really anyone off the front, but a couple riders have tried to go off the front here. And that's sort of gonna be the theme of the next like 5 or 10 minutes of racing here. Is riders seemed like they wanted to try to send some little attacks. Like that rider in blue, I think, was talking to Bailey, and I was curious at the time and also curious watching it back now if he was saying like, hey, you want to start taking pulls. I should ask Bailey. I have no idea what happened there. Jason's going up, marking attacks. I feel super confident with the team that we have out here. These guys are really, really strong, and they know how to ride Seward. And there's Brett again. Brett just appears out of nowhere in the white helmet, and he's gonna cover this attack / do a little attack himself. So he goes up with that other organic Gnar Harvest rider up the road. Anyway, I'm gonna do what I normally do and kind of shut up for a couple minutes here and just let the racing play out, and then come back and talk about important stuff that happens. Here's one noteworthy thing actually right now, is it's worth watching this rider in the blue and green who's in the first wheel of our group right now. I actually can't remember. I don't know if he bridged up to this group or he attacked later. I think he actually attacked after the second preem, but this rider ended up solo off the front basically for the entirety of between the second preem and the last lap. And so it must have been on or after the second preem that he went off the front. And then also look out for, at some point, Nigel, the other organic Gnar Harvest rider in the, I believe, black helmet. As soon as we reel in these two guys, he goes off the front, and he ends up nabbing the second preem off of it, which is just, super smart racing from Nigel. So look out for that. This Apex rider's trying to bridge up as well. This is, like I said, sort of the point in the race at which people were trying to send attacks. So Brett and his breakaway buddy just got brought back here. Brett's on the right side of the screen in the white helmet here. And Nigel just snuck off the front past his own teammate there. It looked like Brett got brought back a little before Nigel's teammate did. And I just fully missed this. I'll fess up to that. I was not really aware during the race that Nigel was off the front until we basically went around this corner and I saw him up there and I was like, wait a second, that's a different rider than the one that was up the road a minute ago. I actually said, oh shit, as I realized that rider's off the front. So again, this is a point where I'm not really going to do a pull here. Mark is on the front. I don't know if he's trying to help pull that rider in or if he just ended up on the front sort of incidentally or what. But I'm not going to move up and take a pull. I'm just going to sit in during this preem lap here. But it's a super smart move from Nigel. I'm just actually really, really impressed about this. Look at you. You basically can't see him at this point. He was just way, way off the front. He chose the perfect moment to attacking over his own teammate for a little bit of added confusion in the pack behind. And I'm sure he did a big effort to get some clearance off the front. But talk about getting a preem for free. He just got it through smart racing here. And that's super impressive. like he probably had like a 4 or 5 second advantage on the pack coming into this this hill, and these riders are kind of hammering it. Maybe they don't realize that there's someone off the front, but he's way up there at this point, and we do basically end up pulling him back in. See, now you can finally see him, and I think he does just sit up after the finish line after getting the preem, and we pull him back in pretty easily here. But yeah, chapeau to Nigel. That was a great move. I'm also going to call out that right here, right again, as he's getting pulled back in, there's kind of another slingshot where this Apex rider and this rider in the green or super dark bluish jersey go off the front, and I don't really want to do work to pull them back in. They seem like they're kind of pulling themselves back in, and I think the Apex rider maybe does drop, but this rider in the green just keeps hammering it off the front. And this is me asking Nigel how the hell he snuck away, because like I said, just totally had missed it. So these two riders are off the front, not by a ton, but they stay off the front for a few laps here. I mean, keep an eye on the rider in the dark green, not the blue Apex jersey up there. He's going to stay off the front solo for quite a while. Now again here, I probably shouldn't technically be on the front. I shouldn't be eating any wind this race, but I kind of don't care because I want to make sure that I'm able to keep an eye on these two guys and manage this breakaway a little bit, and then also, you know, like I said, I actually care a little more about positioning into the downhill than I do about eating a little bit of wind on this like false flat up down section. So like I'm gonna let a rider or two come around me, but I'm just not super concerned about this.
They're not, those two.
Now that's kind of interesting. That was
All the way up there is, though.
These are just conversations with some random other riders in this race. They're right. There was kind of a lot of lapped riders in this race. Like I said earlier, it was just a huge field. But also me telling them that is kind of... I'm really trying to feed into the like, hey, let's, you know, start chasing this. Especially this guy's an Apex rider and we're about to catch his teammate. So suddenly he doesn't have a guy off the front. Maybe he's going to try to slingshot around this guy and join that guy up top. But, you know, the guy who's off the front is not, to my knowledge, teammates with anyone. So there is some motivation to obviously keep him under control and bring him back. But that being said, you know, we're like not yet 20 minutes into the race. We know we have a few laps to manage this. So this was awesome. My teammate Bailey is coming through, asking me if this rider off the front was lapped or dropped or not, and now he's going to do some work for me. Thank you, Bailey. This was awesome. This rider in brown, you know, who knows if he was faking or not, but he was definitely telling me, like, hey, I don't have it in my legs to catch this guy, and I sure as hell didn't want to do a bunch of pulling at this point in the race. And so having Bailey be willing to go up there, even though there's this little gap again, like, you know, watching this back, I really definitely should have tried to be on Bailey's wheel a lot better than I was, but it just, like, I'm doing sub 200 watts here, and I know I'm gonna catch them, like, as soon as we hit the hill, so I just didn't feel super concerned about it, even though this is definitely not good racing from me. Definitely should have been up there in the mix a little more. So Brett's going to send another one. Super happy about this, especially with no one really on his wheel. It means that the pressure's off us to chase a little bit. I actually like kind of chirped at Mark there not to chase Brett, because if he's able to bridge up to this dude and the two of them go 1-2, you know, whatever, we're happy with that. But obviously, selfishly, I would still like for it to get brought back. And sure enough, some other riders, especially with a second guy off the front, that suddenly looks a little more threatening than just a single guy off the front. So other riders are going to start going and putting in some work as well. So last lap, and I'm actually fairly happy with this. Obviously super happy with not being on the front, having one of these Apex guys on the front, but pretty happy with this, feeling like this guy's in striking distance for the first time in a couple laps. He's certainly not, you know, it's easy to take advantage of the slingshot effect, especially at the bottom of the hill, getting a little bit of draft, and so I'm suddenly feeling like unless we really let up here, we're going to catch him. This was another point in the race at which, watching it back, I really screwed up. I really just should have stuck on that rider in black's wheel. I don't know what the hell I was thinking here. I think I was maybe trying to get that Apex guy to wear himself out a little bit, or maybe I just wasn't thinking. Maybe I felt like I was strong enough to beat any of these guys as long as I was, you know, coming from the group behind with a little bit of speed. And going into this hill, that Apex rider on the blue canyon is going to go over me again. I really should have jumped on his wheel even more than I did. And here I make a fairly big mistake, which is I'm trying to really stay on the right, but I didn't see this rider in the orange, and I yelled a little panicked about that, and I just kind of lost some power there. Should have just tried to stay on that guy's wheel. I'm really trying to come over this guy, but I just can't quite get it. He did beat me on the line. So second place again, you know, pretty happy with that 2 weeks in a row, but one of these weeks I'll win the 530.
Great work.